Our presentation is entitled Time for STEM, and that stands for Transforming Integrative Makerspace Education for STEM Teaching and Learning. I'm Dr. Cameron York, and I'm a lecturer in the School of Education at Point Park University, which is in the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And my colleague here, Dr. Ginny Chambers, is an associate professor, and we will be co-presenting. I'll start the presentation, and then she will take over about halfway through. So a little bit about our presentation. We're going to go over a little bit about maker education and what that means, a little bit more about STEM education and teacher preparation. Both Dr. Chambers and I are former classroom teachers in the elementary classrooms, and we now work with undergraduate and graduate teacher certification candidates. So we work a lot in teacher preparation. And so really our focus in our daily work is trying to prepare our students to be as prepared as they can in the classrooms. So we're going to go over this collaborative process that we have gone through in order to start this innovative project at our university. We'll share with you our Makerspace Lab. We'll get into maker education and STREAM, incorporating a little bit of literacy, giving some student project examples, and then finally sharing some really great news about an NSF grant project that we are working on. And then hopefully there'll be time for questions. And so when we're looking at maker education, and like I said, when we're talking about preparing our students, we really turn to the literature of what is going on in the classroom so that we can best prepare our teachers. And so maker education is an approach that positions agency and student interest at the center. So it's really allowing students to become more aware of the design of the world around them. And so we have noticed over the past decades, especially when we take our students into the classrooms to do their field experience, that there's been a large makerspace education movement on the rise. And there's a heightened interest in maker-centered learning, particularly in STEM learning. And so really what maker education involves is students working with their hands in an interdisciplinary STEM environment that really incorporates various tools, materials, and technologies. And through makerspaces, students can really work on STEM subjects through project-based projects using interaction and engagement in activities. Maker-centered learning has shown in the literature to increase the proficiency in STEM subjects. And so that's really been why makerspace has really taken a hold in classrooms. The makerspace labs or the classrooms are the physical spaces. So that's where the making and the learning, exploring, and sharing take place. And usually a lot of labs or classrooms have a lot of technology, but there's also a lot of no-tech tools that are also used in these spaces. So really when we're looking at this, like Dr. Chambers and I say, when we go to the classrooms and we see what students are doing and classroom teachers are doing, makerspace education is on the rise, but surprisingly 40% of teachers have reported that they feel underprepared to teach in these environments. And in fact, the research shows that this lack of preparedness is directly related to the lack of understanding and training in STEM education and maker-centered learning. And so that really was the driving force of what we really have been taking a hold of over the last couple of years. According to the labor statistics, STEM professions are expected to grow 8.8% in the next 10 years as compared to 5% in other professions. So this is an opportunity to improve STEM learning and teaching by using makerspace education in an integrative, collaborative process using other curriculums as well. We've noticed regionally that there's a growing need to better prepare our pre-service teaching students to work in a maker-centered STEM education classroom. And so that really has been the driving force of our project and this change. Looking at elementary education, that's a great opportunity to improve the attitudes towards STEM subjects, developing those higher level critical thinking skills, problem solving skills to improve the proficiency in math and science. And in-service and pre-service teachers, as I mentioned earlier, they really have identified a need to boost this experience with STEM learning and teaching, because there's been a lot of anxiety with STEM instruction due to this lack of understanding of STEM pedagogical content. And so STEM education is a perfect foundation. It provides that necessary foundation for daily life in the changing 21st century workforce, that we could really prepare our students to be able to work with K-12 students in the classroom to best prepare them. So this project, like I said, this is a picture of our students out in the schools working with elementary students, and this is a makerspace. Matt's Makerspace is a regional organization that we have partnered with in our community, and they are considered the go-to organization for connecting partners, helping schools find resources to establish spaces in their own buildings, and then also training the teachers and the staff working with these with students within these spaces. And so we looked as an opportunity to partner with one of our community organizations, and that has really inspired our collaborative process at our university. So we realize that as School of Education, while we have much knowledge within the pedagogical knowledge of what is needed for pre-service teachers to move into the classrooms professionally, we knew that this project would need a collaborative approach incorporating many different departments at our university and community partners. And so I just wanted to highlight here really who we've turned to within this project. So not only as a School of Education are we a big part of this project, but our partner with Matt's Makerspace. And then we also looked to the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. We used them as our professional resource. They are leading charge of makerspace education, and they helped us with the design of our space. And then internally, we relied heavily on our NSET department, which is our Natural Sciences Engineering Technology department. And so we really wanted to explore this in an interdisciplinary approach using another school within our university. And then looking to the technology department and the physical plants department in our university, because it needed to be a collaborative approach so that as we're designing and reinventing a classroom and a space, we wanted to make sure that we were utilizing all of our resources. And then also our grants and fellowship office at the university. We wanted to explore different opportunities for funding so that we not only were getting a new classroom and a new space, but we also were looking at ways that we could build our capacity and sustainability with our Makerspace lab. So this is some pictures of the early stages of our Point Park University's Matt's Makerspace lab. So the lab was officially completed a year ago, but with COVID and restrictions and social distancing and capacity, we really have not been able to be in the physical space. But the beauty of makerspace education is that you don't actually need a lab to do it. We could do that within our methods courses in our traditional classrooms. So, but these are some pictures of our current lab where there's, as you can see, a lot of storage for low and high-tech materials, resources, and tools. So some of the items that we will have, that they are currently being unpacked and delivered and organized, you will see things, anything from craft supplies, materials, manipulatives that our students will be able to work with as we do problem-based learning, but also some of those higher tech tools such as 3D printers and robotics kits and things that the students will be able to do some programming and different things like that. In addition, there's a lot of collaborative workspaces. The research points to the fact that most Maker Ed and STEM education leads to a lot of collaborative, hands-on group project-based learning. So we have these wipeable surface spaces where students can plan, design, implement their different ideas, and then practice, different project ideas. And then obviously the different hard surfaces for any of the hard tools in the building that can take place in these spaces. And then finally, like I said, we have the wipeable tables, and then the technology. Like I said, we worked very close with our technology department because we wanted the ability to make this a very collaborative classroom where our students could work in small pods, but then also share their projects, their presentations or resources with other groups throughout the classroom. So one of the things that we also realized is that as a faculty and staff within the School of Education, while we all have classroom experience and a lot of K-12 experience, in order to stay abreast on maker education, STEM education, we know that professional development is a key factor in our process to build our capacity and being able to sustain this for the future. So one of the things that we're part of is a regional opportunity where we partner with other makerspace labs within the Pittsburgh region. So those include a nonprofit organization as well as local elementary schools and hospitals and different organizations. I think there's 5 of us within the hub. And we, in these opportunities, we have these hands-on experiences where we have the opportunity to create our vision statement and really talk about our beliefs and our value system and creating our vision for our space. And so our vision statement for our Makerspace Lab is enhancing educational experiences through maker learning. Some of the values and beliefs that we have been able to collaboratively come together and create develops critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. And we have learned in the field of education that those are critical skills that are needed for students to enter the workforce regardless of the profession. We believe that making engages all learners. We've learned that, through education, when we are engaged and we are responsible for our learning, that we have better results. We believe making helps develop good habits of mind, and again, working on those, the skill set and developing that not only in our pre-service teachers, but in order for them to work with their classroom students in their profession, we want to develop that habit of mind as university students and pre-service teachers to take that into the classroom. And then we also believe that making builds teamwork and positive working relationships. And so as a team in the School of Education, we really have worked over the last couple of years to come up with these values and beliefs and work as a university and a School of Education to develop our understanding so that we can best deliver this to our students. And then even in COVID worlds, we included this because our professional development did not end. We made sure that we utilized the virtual learning spaces to have faculty development sessions so that not only the core of us that are working on this project and that understand maker education a little bit more, but that we are building the capacity and the understanding within our whole School of Education faculty. So we've had opportunities to do that with some of our regional partners as well. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chambers as she starts to share some of the ways that maker education and STEM and literacy, I should say as well, incorporate these ideas.
Thank you, Dr. York. So yes, we are, Dr. York and I are really excited to be pioneering this innovative project at our university as 2 of the newer faculty in the School of Education. Not only are we looking at new opportunities that will grow our school and provide wonderful opportunities for our students, but we're also looking at new and innovative approaches. And as 2 female faculty in the School of Education, we're taking on STEM learning, which is something that we are really proud of. And so, oh, there we go. And we just wanted to share with you some of examples of how we are taking the courses and the ideas that we're teaching with our students, with our pre-K to 4 major students, and how we're incorporating that into our coursework. So the examples that I'm sharing with you today are examples from my reading methods course, where when we talk about STEM at Point Park University, we're actually, we like to refer to it as STREAM, because we incorporate not only science, technology, engineering, and math, but we also incorporate the reading and arts, to really looking at it as a interdisciplinary approach to STEM teaching and learning. And so my background is in reading education, so I teach the reading methods courses, and when I'm working in the maker education framework and thinking about the makerspace lab, how I present it to this type of learning to my students is through an approach called novel engineering design. And this approach uses, at the core, uses a text, a reading material that you would be reading with students, but the process and the collaborative approach and really the project based around the text brings in the engineering design. And so this graphic shows kind of how you work with literature in a makerspace through an engineering design process. So you identify a problem based on what you've read. And this, in my classrooms, we look at not only narrative pieces, but also expository. We look at poetry, and we build problems and projects off of our text. So you identify an issue or something that you want to solve, a challenge based on the characters or the information in the text. So it really allows students to dig deeper when we're talking about comprehension and vocabulary, really looking at a text at a much deeper level and in a collaborative approach. Based on what the problem is, students design a solution, and then they test the solution, improve it, and they share their ideas. So this shows you a example of how it's connected back to literature when we're talking about the engineering design process. So it's not just about science, technology, engineering, and math. We do incorporate in our coursework also the reading and the arts. So Cameron, if you want to go to the next slide. And so one thing that we do with the novel engineering, not only in my course, but also in Dr. York's courses, we talk about the 4 C's and, in 21st century learning. Well, there is a direct fit to the 4 C's in makerspace, and certainly in my courses with the novel engineering. So the 4 C's: collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and communication. Those are a direct relation to maker education and what we see, the type of learning that we see in a makerspace. So collaboration for the novel engineering, students work together in the literature analysis. I do a lot of focus with poetry in the makerspace. That's been kind of my research focus over the last year or two. So we've been looking at poetry and how we can extend that learning of poems and dig deeper into ideas of poems through makerspace. Creativity, students are still using the engineering design process, but using it in responding to a piece of literature. It's open-ended, it's student-driven, and it produces such creative work, much more than perhaps a writing prompt might do as a typical response to a writing piece or a piece of literature. Critical thinking, they are creating ideas, testing ideas, redesigning it, collaborating with their peers to come up with the best solution for whatever the project is that they're working on based on the text. And then obviously communication, since it is such a collaborative approach, ideas are shared and discussed with the class. That's a big part of the engineering design process, and certainly with the novel engineering. At the end of the whole process, there is sharing. And so we're, in English language arts, we're always talking about working on listening and speaking comprehension skills, and that's a big component of maker education, sharing out with the process and what the students have learned through the project. And so when we talk about maker education, and there it is, STREAM, not just STEM, but incorporating that reading and the arts, we feel that it's a perfect fit. Both engage learners through the development of the 4 C's. Both explore new language and vocabulary. I encourage creative thinking, absolutely. And then through the projects, through the engineering design process, building reading, speaking, and listening skills. And we have seen it not only with our students at the university level, but then when our students go out to a school and work with elementary age students, the level of engagement and motivation when they're working with, for example, a poem in the maker space, the level of engagement and just excitement is so much is very different than perhaps what you might see in the traditional classroom. So I wanted to show for you just very briefly an example of what I did in my class. I had students do a novel engineering poem challenge. And so this was the rubric that we used. Students had to choose a poem and then go through and design a problem and students identified a design problem associated with the poem, and then they had to reflect and demonstrate their understanding of the text through what they designed. They had to present it. They had to work carefully on the visualization piece, and then there's a peer critique. So this is the rubric that they used for the project that they did for my methods course, and then they actually took these lessons and worked with elementary students in the Pittsburgh area. Some were in makerspace labs, some were just in traditional classrooms, but they went in to do poetry lessons and kind of brought the poem to life through these, the novel engineering design challenge. Let me go to the next. So we also always, when we talk about engineering design, we talk about brainstorming or coming up with your ideas. And so there's always some sort of a design planning sheet. So when we used it with the poetry unit, based on the poem, what problem did the students want to solve? What details of the poem do we need to consider to solve this problem? And then they had to, we planned to build a blank that will, what is it going to do? And then the brainstorming of the materials, the sketching of the plan, and then a big part of maker education is it's the process that's important, not the product. So most of the time when they attempt a design or attempt to construct something, some changes need to be made before they get to that final project. And that second attempt, third attempt is such an important lesson in across outside of the makerspace learning, but it's something that I really like seeing, especially my students working with the elementary students on, okay, if that didn't work, what can we do next? And then our creation made me think about the poem in this new way. So it's bringing it back to that kind of comprehension piece, to digging deep into the idea of the poem. So I have some examples to share with you briefly. So this is an example that a student used a very familiar Humpty Dumpty poem, and the students, he used the poem Humpty Dumpty Sat on a Wall and incorporated, we talk about reading aloud the poem to the student and engaging the students through the read aloud of the poem. He had a Humpty Dumpty song, and then took that whole idea of Humpty Dumpty Sat on a Wall and Had a Great Fall, brought it into the makerspace lab, and had the students do an egg drop challenge. And they had to talk about what they needed to do in order to drop their egg off of the table and not let the egg crack like Humpty Dumpty did. And I mean, the level of engagement when the student did this with the elementary students was just phenomenal. And they had so much fun with it and looked at, probably will never look at the poem Humpty Dumpty the same again. And then another example. This was one for a poem called The Leprechauns Are Marching, around St. Patrick's Day, about the leprechauns, and they had to design, based on the poem, they had to design a leprechaun trap. And the students, I think of, I did something similar in a professional development for maker education, and what we as adults designed for a leprechaun trap compared to what I saw the elementary students through my students' lesson design for their leprechaun. It was amazing, the creativity and just the collaboration and the level of engagement when they were designing the leprechaun traps based off of the poem. And I believe there's one more, Dr. York.
I think that's it.
Oh, is that it? Okay. So to kind of bring it home for all of you, as I said earlier, we are really proud of the work we're doing, and this is an innovative project that we brought to Point Park University. We have a new makerspace lab. We're focusing on STEM education, and like Dr. York mentioned, part of our approach was looking at institutional partners, community partners, as well as grant opportunities. And I'm proud to announce, this is one of the first public announcements at the WomenEdUS Unconference, that we just found out a week ago that we received a National Science Foundation grant for our makerspace and for this project called Time for STEM. And the purpose of our grant project is to improve the quality and effectiveness of STEM education for faculty, because it starts with our faculty at Point Park, and then our pre-service teachers through makerspace education. We are going to, over the next 3 years, look at what do pre-service teachers and faculty members identify as areas of pedagogical growth in STEM learning and teaching in a makerspace environment. So really look closely at our courses, look at what assignments and activities we're doing, like the one I just showed you. with the poetry and the novel engineering design, and really have a collaborative approach among faculty, teach those in our interdisciplinary methods courses, and then have our students go out to the schools and work with students in the schools with this new STEM learning in a maker environment. So we're really excited about this 3-year project through NSF. It starts this fall, and we'll certainly be sharing all information about this. But this is the large, for Dr. York and I, and Point Park University, it's the first NSF grant awarded to Point Park University. So Dr. York and I are, you know, it was about a year-long proposal process, but we were really happy with this component of this project that we feel so passionate about. So that is our work at Point Park with STEM education, and we are really happy to share all of this with you today. And our contact is there on the screen. And we have just a couple minutes if there are any questions, but we wanted to be careful of the time. But thank you all for listening to our presentation.